New numbers are showing a decline in certain crimes in Los Angeles.
LAPD Chief Jim McDonnell is here to talk about some of the improvements and how they're tackling the work that still needs to be done. Good morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So we do want to talk. There was a big press conference this week about how violent crime is down in the area. However, robberies and burglaries, something that does impact a lot of people, get very nervous about because we hear about all the different techniques and things that robbers are doing, are up. So what are we doing to combat these crimes?
Yeah, thank you. When we talked about the numbers we talked about for 2024, we were down in all crime categories except for robberies, which were flat. Looking at the first quarter of 2025, we're down in all categories. We're still very focused on the burglary problem because it's been so prevalent, particularly on the west side and in the valley. And there are things that you can do to be able to try and help prevent that from happening. And the best thing are good neighbors who are looking out for each other.
Communication between
that
neighbors.
works pretty good. Yeah.
You know, and I'm in a lot of those neighborhood groups. I have a family. I live in the suburbs. One of the things I often see when someone has a break-in or something happens to their car, or is it takes so long for the police to show up, or I'm not even going to call because they're not going to come. What about response times and getting? Obviously, that's not necessarily violent crime, but it's important to the people who live in those communities.
Yeah. Well, as you can imagine, we have a limited number of resources, and we try and get to the calls that need us right now. We try and get there immediately. So calls for violent crime in progress, those are the priority calls. A call that has already occurred and the suspect has left the area, that is now a report and an investigation. That won't get the same level of priority, particularly on a busy night, that the other calls will. So we try and do the best we can to get people out there as quickly as we can, but the reality is, working with the resources we have, dealing with the volume that we're dealing with, we ask that people try and be patient with us.
You still want them to call, though, right? And report those?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's critical that people report crime. We deploy partly based on crime occurrence, and we target our resources to where we see patterns, trends, or clusters of crime. And so if we don't get a report of the crime, then you're not going to get the attention you deserve.
Well, I'm glad you bring up resources, because we spent so much time talking about how you need more officers, especially when we're talking about these types of topics. However, we now see that the city is in a big budget shortfall now. So how are we going to rectify this so that you do have the resources you need to respond to everybody's call?
No, on the budget issue, certainly we're all tightening our belts and trying to be as efficient as we can with our resources we do have. It's going to be a tough year ahead, and probably several years ahead. We do have a budget to be able to support growing the police department.
You do?
Yeah, we do, and we're doing much better on recruiting than we had in past years. So at the end of last year, we saw an increase, the highest number of people applied in 4 years. So we're optimistic about that. We're still trying to work out the pipeline, if you will, as people come into the organization and start to go through the selection process. We're trying to streamline that even more so that people get the call, and we get to hire the people before other agencies do.
Yeah. And speaking of recruitment, there was an LA Times investigation with some audio recordings allegedly made during the recruitment process that were, racist, sexist. As the leader of the department, what do you say to that?
I say it's appalling that people who feel that way should not be on the job in the first place. And we screen for that, and we try and do the very best we can. We set the tone very clearly. When we became aware of this occurrence, we immediately made the appropriate notification to our boss, the police commission. The inspector general notified the mayor. We pulled those individuals out, assigned them to home, took their police powers away, and have a full court press on the investigation that'll go forward. People will be investigated, given their fair shot, but held accountable for their actions.
You know, I do want to ask you, right before we came to you, we were talking to Rick Montanez out in San Bernardino County, where that officer was killed in a pursuit. We've had other accidents just this week in terms of pursuits where innocent people are either hurt or killed. One of them involved the LAPD. Can you walk people through, some of the training, what you talk about when it comes to making sure you keep innocent people safe in these pursuits?
Yeah. No, we want to keep everybody safe, and anytime we engage in a pursuit, it's a major decision-making process from initiation until termination of the pursuit. We always, as we're weighing the pros and cons to a pursuit, look at what's the gravity of the offense that we're chasing the person for, and do a kind of a risk analysis. Is what we're chasing them for worth the risk that we're putting everybody involved in this through? And so it's constantly looking at the weather conditions, the road conditions, the level of traffic at the time. You know, what area are you in? Are you on a freeway, or are you in city streets? All those things are weighed. The speed of the suspect vehicle, so the officers in the pursuing vehicle can make the call to terminate at any time. The supervisor who's out there can, the watch commander can. We now have an ability using technology for the watch commander to be able to see what the camera in the car is seeing, so they can watch the pursuit in progress and be able to make determinations as, okay, let's back off. The helicopters we use extensively are such a tremendous help. We can back off and go into tracking mode and let the helicopter take over the pursuit, and then when the suspect stops, come and surround them and arrest them. And we try and do that as often as we can as well. So there's a number of tactics and strategies being employed from the time the pursuit begins until the end, and it's constantly balancing, you know, the need for public safety, holding this individual accountable, and then the safety of the community.
And of course, it's not always perfect.
Yeah. No, like, yeah, sadly, yep.
All right. Thank you so much, Chief McDonnell, for joining us, as always.
Thank you.